a circus clown's life is in danger after he falls in love with his colleague's seductive girlfriend. During the Spanish Civil War in 1937, a military captain barges inside a circus and recruits all the male members to join the Republican militia. On the battlefield, Funny Clown fearlessly overpowers some of the rebels, even if he's only armed with a machete. Unfortunately for the military captain, he receives multiple gunshots from the rebels, which ends his life. Funny Clown feels wrathful after seeing his leader's lifeless body, driving him to eliminate every enemy that comes his way. All of a sudden, a bullet grazes his leg, which causes him to fall and lose consciousness. Shortly after, Colonel Salcedo appears, and he's in disbelief that a mere clown has wiped out his whole regiment. Instead of acknowledging him, Funny Clown plays a trick on him, and this provocation causes him to threaten that he'll be facing his wrath. While Funny Clown's comrades are sentenced to death, his son Javier visits him because he's been worried about him. The clown assures him that he won't be killed like the rest, explaining that he'll be kept as a laborer. He promises that they'll be together after a month, but Javier remains silent for he's uncertain about it. A few years later, Javier, now a teen, visits his father in prison, but he feels concerned the moment he sees his father's disheveled appearance. Funny Clown pities his son more than himself, for life has been merciless on him. Javier's optimistic that he'll be freed someday, but his father doesn't share this vision. The clown informs him that they're tasked to build a giant cross, which will take them a while. Out of curiosity, Funny Clown asks what Javier wants to be when he grows up, and the teen shares that he wants to be a clown like him. He expresses his desire to take his place as the funny clown to make the children laugh. Contrary to this, his father believes he should be the sad clown, for he has suffered plenty. However, Javier hesitates as he fears that people won't love him if he can't make them laugh. In a flash, Funny Clown thinks of a way to thwart his son's fate. He encourages him to seek revenge. Adhering to his father's advice, Javier sneaks inside the cave where laborers are working and leaves a dynamite to set his father free. An explosion trembles the whole cave, compelling the laborers to find an exit desperately. Javier assists his father in escaping, but due to his actions, Colonel Salcedo chases after them to teach them a lesson. Upon blocking their way, the colonel urges his horse to trample over the clown, angering Javier. He then pulls Salcedo to the ground, but as a result of this, the colonel injures his eye. Fast forward to 1973, Javier joins a circus as the Sad Clown, and Ramiro, an elephant handler, briefly introduces him to their other colleagues. Then, he also introduces him to his elephant named Princess, but it unexpectedly strikes Javier, causing him to stumble. Ramiro believes that Princess must have thought Javier was a woman due to his costume, so the elephant becomes aggressive out of jealousy. At that moment, Javier becomes mesmerized by a trapeze artist named Natalia, practicing mid-air. Ramiro helps him to his feet, but he reprimands him for gazing intently at the woman. He warns Javier that Natalia is his boss's girlfriend, so she's off limits. Following this, Ramiro takes Javier inside a trailer and introduces Javier to Sergio, his boss. Because he's a new addition to their circus, Sergio wonders if he's patient with children, but Javier simply voices that he'll do whatever he wants. His answer doesn't suffice as Sergio believes that clowns must be caring and understanding toward children. That night, Javier joins a group dinner with his colleagues, and Sergio cracks a joke to brighten the mood. Suddenly, he smashes the chicken into the window as part of his delivery, which the group finds uncomfortable. But since they don't want to upset him, they proceed to laugh. Javier doesn't find the joke funny, so he requests Sergio to explain it, but this only infuriates him. Sergio begins to throw a temper, but Natalia attempts to calm him down as he's starting to cause a scene. However, Sergio refuses to cooperate and treats her poorly, motivating her to admit that his joke is unfunny. Angered, Sergio strikes and beats Natalia until she's unconscious, but no one intervenes because they're afraid of their boss. After dinner, Sergio heads home with his colleagues and simply leaves his unconscious girlfriend in the diner. Concerned for her, Javier returns and helps her get back on her feet. He asks her if Sergio often gets physical, and the woman confirms. When she turns to leave, she asks for his identity, and Javier reveals that he's the new sad clown. She warns him that he'll soon face trouble, just like what happened to the last sad clown, which makes Javier uneasy. Before they can further converse, Sergio appears, scaring Javier, so he proceeds to hide. A drunk Sergio returns to the diner and pleads with Natalia to forgive him for his outburst earlier. Natalia has yet to give her answer because she's cautious of him, so Sergio begins to make love with her. As the couple is getting intimate, Javier, who's hiding below the window, feels uncomfortable, leading him to flee. The following day, 2 circus members carry Javier after his show, wherein he makes the children laugh after embarrassing himself. Delighted in him, the showman promises to pay him double as long as he maintains his excellent performance. Ramiro commends him, but their conversation's interrupted when Natalia appears. She's also pleased with how his routine went, so she permits him to take her to dinner later. Initially, Javier refuses because she has a possessive boyfriend, but Ramiro answers in his stead. During their horror house date, Javier encourages Natalia to leave Sergio, but she refuses because she loves his roughness. She invites him into the bed, and she shares that he finds him different from the men she's encountered. For Natalia, he's the only man who doesn't want to take advantage of her. Back at the circus, Javier walks Natalia home, and he's satisfied with how their date unfolded. He's about to leave Sergio's alone when he hears him confronting Ramiro about Natalia, alarming him. Javier overhears that Sergio is suspecting that Natalia is cheating on him, but Ramiro thinks otherwise. To prevent her from getting in trouble, Ramiro prevents Sergio from heading to his trailer, lying that he shouldn't disturb his girlfriend's sleep. Sergio accuses him of concealing information, so he threatens to harm him. Still, Ramiro insists that he shouldn't return home because he's drunk. Irritated, Sergio punches Ramiro and whips him, further frightening Javier. Immediately, he races inside the trailer to hide Natalia from the menacing man. Natalia, who's in the middle of changing, is surprised by his sudden appearance, but Javier pulls her inside the bathroom as they don't have much time to explain. Not long after, Sergio enters his trailer and he becomes furious that Natalia is missing. In the bathroom, Natalia asks Javier if he's scared, and he confirms. She thinks that fear spices things up, so she tries to kiss him only for Javier to dodge it. The next day before their show, Sergio confronts Javier about the possibility of him fooling around with Natalia. Javier denies seeing her, and he even lies about being busy last night. Though still suspicious of him, Sergio clarifies that he might be rough at times, but he deeply loves Natalia. Moments later in Javier's trailer, Natalia invites him to have a carnival date, but he's unsure as he worries about Sergio. She assures him they'll be fine because Sergio got drunk and went to bed early. Later that evening at the carnival, Javier voices that he doesn't find it impossible to fall in love with Natalia, but she simply takes his declaration lightly. Insulted, Javier believes that he'd rather never see her again than be treated like that. Contrary to his assumption, Natalia finds him admirable as he is the only person who stands up against Sergio. To confirm his feelings, Natalia kisses Javier, and this makes him feel ecstatic. With their relationship's progression, the couple continues their date, but their happiness reaches an end as they encounter Sergio. Natalia takes responsibility for Javier by admitting that she convinced him to take her to the carnival. Sergio refuses to acknowledge her reason and proceeds to strike her. Now subdued, Sergio grabs Natalia's hair and drags her, but Javier, who's deeply distressed, attempts to stop him. Sergio is so motivated in anger that he places Javier's body into the high striker game, and he pounds him using the mallet. The following day in the hospital, Javier is severely injured, so Natalia expresses her regret for involving him in her life. Therefore, she decides to return to Sergio and urges Javier to forget about their romance. Javier is against it, but Natalia emphasizes that Sergio will further harm him if he remains in her life. During the night, Javier has various nightmares wherein he's close to reaching Natalia, only for Sergio to intervene between them. With this vision, Javier is determined to rescue her from him, so he proceeds to sneak out of the hospital. Upon arriving at the circus tent, Javier discovers that Natalia is making love with Sergio, infuriating him. Javier grabs a hook to tear the fabric open, and he unremorsefully attacks Sergio, particularly his face. Natalia becomes frozen in place as she's shocked by Javier's ruthlessness. However, he feels triumphant because he's eliminated the threat to their relationship. At that moment, Andres and the showman enter the tent to confront Javier, but the man hurriedly flees. The showman looks in horror at Sergio's mangled face, so he orders his associates to contact the authorities. Andres notes that Sergio is still alive, but he stresses that he won't live for long. Left without a choice, the circus troupe visits the veterinarian as he is the only medical practitioner nearby. Meanwhile, the authorities chase after Javier in the sewer, but despite their number, they fail to catch him as he's latched onto the manhole ladder. For the next few months, Javier stays in a cave located in a secluded forest, and he gains nourishment by feeding on animal carcasses, until one day, a wild boar accidentally falls into his cave, and the animal proceeds to charge at him. Afraid for his life, he aimlessly sprints away, but the boar attacks him from behind. Thankfully, a hunter named Anselmo kills the boar, who turns out to be Salcedo's associate. Salcedo approaches Javier and scrutinizes the familiar necklace he's donning, making him think he might be someone he knows. Because of this, he orders Anselmo to put Javier into their vehicle. Once they reach Salcedo's residence, Anselmo asks him about what he'll do to Javier, and the colonel orders him to put him to work tomorrow. He's unsure of it because Javier seems to be feral, noting that he doesn't know how to speak. Salcedo's doubtful of his observation, so he brushes the issue aside. Alone, Salcedo retrieves the photograph he got from the war years ago, and his assumption about Javier's identity is confirmed all because of the necklace. The next day, Salcedo meets with General Francisco Franco, and they spend the day hunting birds. On the other hand, Anselmo orders Javier to retrieve the carcass, and the man hurriedly complies. When Javier carries the carcass using his hands, Anselmo reprimands him because he's supposed to grab it using his mouth, like a dog. In compliance, Javier heads to Salcedo's location and hands the bird like a dutiful dog. Salcedo's pleased with his obedience, but Franco isn't, making him curious about what Javier did to him to deserve such kind of treatment. The colonel informs him that Javier had made a fool out of him years ago, but Franco's empathetic toward Javier, believing no one deserves such shameful treatment. That's why when Javier hands him a bird's carcass, Franco affectionately pats his cheek and encourages him to get up. However, Javier has lost his sanity, so he bites his hand, terrifying the whole crowd. By the evening, Natalia, alongside the rest of the circus troupe, performs in a nightclub. It turns out that their circus has ceased operation because Sergio went missing after he was treated, leaving them penniless as he is the member who generates their income. Meanwhile, Anselmo accompanies Javier inside the storage room and informs him that Salcedo will shoot him the next day for biting Franco. Once Anselmo leaves, Javier has a hallucination where Natalia becomes the Holy Mother. She orders him to become her angel of death and save her from evil. Without hesitation, Javier begins crafting his attire by transforming the bishop's vestments into a clown outfit. Afterward, he splashes his face with sodium hydroxide to give himself a permanent pale complexion. Then, he burns his cheeks using a flat iron to make it appear as a blush. Moments later, Anselmo returns to the storage room, but he's confused by how different Javier looks. Before he can further interrogate him, Javier strikes him using the flat iron until he's lifeless. Right away, Javier heads to Salcedo's study and he mercilessly subdues him. The colonel tries to reach for a gun, but Javier prevents him from succeeding. Instead, he grabs the weapon and shoots Salcedo until it runs out of bullets. At the same time, Natalia tries to run away from a stalker, but the man catches up to her. She's surprised to discover that he's Sergio, who's now bearing a scarred face. He asks her if she's dating Javier, but the woman's horrified of him, so she pushes him away. Due to the impact, Sergio hurts his back, so he pleads with her to help him. However, Natalia's repulsed by him, so she refuses and proceeds to leave. The next day, Javier heads to the nightclub, but he encounters Andres and his wife Sonsoles instead. He threatens to shoot them and demands that they reveal Natalia's whereabouts. Scared, Andres informs him that she's on the back way, planning to leave. Upon seeing Natalia, Javier immediately heads in her direction, but he feels uneasy when Sergio grabs the woman. To drive him away, Javier sprays numerous bullets in his direction. A terrified Natalia enters the car, and Sergio tries to follow, but Javier shoots the vehicle. He orders Natalia to leave Sergio as he wants to fulfill his mission of saving her from him. Surprisingly, Sergio doesn't put up a fight and even encourages her to comply. Now stuck in the middle, Natalia's pressured to choose between them. In an instant, Natalia chooses Sergio, which leaves Javier heartbroken. Just then, the authorities appear, so Natalia and Sergio immediately escape, whereas Javier remains glued to the floor. As a result, the authorities attempt to seize him, but Andres intervenes. Before he runs out of time, Ramiro unshackles Javier, allowing the man to escape. Due to the commotion that Javier's caused, he becomes the topic of a news report, informing the public about his misdeeds, mainly killing people. Later that day, a dejected Javier enters a theater, and he has a hallucination of his father. The man encourages him to pursue Natalia and kill Sergio because he doesn't deserve her. Meanwhile, Natalia and Sergio perform at a birthday party to earn money. One of the children pulls Sergio's fake beard to play a trick on him, but this only scares the rest of the crowd. A child tries to scream and alert the parents, but Sergio quickly grabs him. However, he's too late because the parents appear and express their disdain toward him. They believe that he's the dangerous clown featured on the news, but Sergio persistently denies it. He pleads with Natalia to help him disprove their claims, but the woman remains silent due to shock. The following morning, Natalia is aimlessly wandering in the streets of Madrid when Javier, who's driving a stolen ice cream truck, appears, compelling her to run. Javier chases after the woman, and he successfully captures her. While he tries to carry her to the vehicle, a civilian intervenes, so he threatens to shoot him. At that moment, an explosion occurs, stopping the world for a moment. Thereafter, the news reveals that the bombing was caused by the rebels, which claimed President Carrero Blanco's life. Inside a diner, Sergio's observing Ghost Rider, his former colleague, so that he can get information about Javier's location. Suddenly, Ghost Rider begins to leave the diner, so he follows him. By the bridge, Sergio threatens to throw him down the train tracks if he refuses to reveal where Natalia and Javier are. Since Ghost Rider remains tight-lipped, Sergio uses coercive questioning, which leads the man to gradually reveal that Javier took Natalia to a cave under Ramiro's help. With this information, Sergio accompanies a group of military police to Javier's location to seize him. As for Javier, he's chasing Natalia inside the cave after his appearance repulses her. She reaches a dead end, allowing the clown to threaten to shoot her. Javier explains that the cave is called the Valley of the Fallen, as it's the place where the dynamite he left to try to save his father detonated. Scared for her life, Natalia pleads with him to stop his plans, promising that she'll do whatever he wants. Javier declares that she must desire him like she desires Sergio. Natalia shows hesitancy at first, but when Javier strangles her, she admits that she actually doesn't love Sergio anymore. Upon hearing this, Javier confesses his love for her, motivating him to kiss her. Just as they're establishing their relationship, Sergio appears while holding Ramiro at gunpoint. Selflessly, Ramiro encourages the couple to run for their lives and head to the monumental cross at the Valle de los Caídos. On their way there, Javier is challenged to stall the authorities by shooting them back. Once he runs out of bullets, he accompanies Natalia in climbing the monument. Finally, as they arrive at the top, Natalia becomes terrified after she discovers the height they've reached. Javier hands her a bundle of fabric, explaining that it's the only way for them to escape. Natalia immediately wraps the fabric into her waist, but before she can continue, Sergio makes his presence known. A physical altercation ensues between Sergio and Javier, prompting Natalia to try to intervene. However, she fails because Sergio pushes her off the rails. While they're fighting, Ghost Rider decides to use his motorcycle stunt in hopes of reaching the cross. Andres and Sonsoles urge him to stop it because they're afraid that he might perish. Still, Ghost Rider's determined, so he proceeds to drive his motorcycle in midair. Unfortunately, his momentum's insufficient, causing him to crash into the monument. Back in the cross, Natalia holds Javier's hand while he's on the ledge as Sergio tries to drag him down. Turning this in his favor, Sergio uses Javier's body as leverage to climb back to the ledge. Surprised, Javier attempts to climb as well, but Sergio stabs his hand, leaving him hanging precariously. Sergio proceeds to threaten Natalia with his knife, but for the first time, she fights him back. Now, she decides to save Javier by jumping off the ledge, and this drags Sergio with her. Though successful in trapping him, the fabric eventually tightens around her waist, killing her. The rest of the circus troupe becomes emotional as they have witnessed her heartbreaking fate. Shortly after, the authorities apprehend Javier and Sergio, which they deem the two as the primary perpetrators for Natalia and Ghost Rider's passing. Inside the police vehicle, the two clowns sit opposite to each other, and they begin to cry for the tragedy that befall them.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.